Hello, and welcome to University Museums at Colgate's Artist Perspective Series, an ongoing podcast featuring Colgate students speaking with artists whose works are represented in the University Museum's collections. Generous support for this podcast has been provided by Art Bridges. Learn more about their incredible work at artbridgesfoundation.org. My name is Nick West, curator of Picker Art Gallery. Our first set of conversations are with artists who have works in the exhibition Exit, Prints for the 21st Century, which is on view at Picker Art Gallery until December 19, 2021. During its 30 years of operation, Manhattan-based alternative art space Exit Art was a place for underrepresented and outsider artists, including many minority, LGBTQ, and women artists, to come together, create, exhibit, perform, and ultimately to advance the story of what constitutes art and who can make it. Picker's collection of Exit Art prints, drawn from benefit portfolios donated to the museum by Exit Art after its closure in 2012, address many contemporary issues surrounding race, inequity, and identity. The variety of images and themes, identities and techniques, perfectly captures the spirit of collaboration, experimentation, and inclusion that Exit Art was founded upon. For this interview, Picker curatorial intern and dual major in economics and art history, Eliza Ge, class of 2023, speaks with Willie Cole about his print Burning Desire from the Exit Art portfolio Ecstasy, printed in 2010, and also about how he navigated through the pandemic as an artist. Cole grounds his work in the concepts of cultural appropriation and postmodernism. Whether creating sculpture out of found objects or prints from heartbreak, he investigates the physicality of memory. His work has been included in many solo and group exhibitions internationally and throughout the United States, including Colgate University's Picker Art Gallery, where Burning Desire is currently on view in the exhibition Exit, Prints for the 21st Century.
Picker Art Gallery is now holding an exhibition named Exit Prints for the 21st Century. It's an honor to have your work Burning Desire in this exhibition. It would be wonderful to hear from you about your relationship to the Exit Art. How did the organization mean to you, and how has it impacted your own development as an artist?
That's question number one. All right. I have been a full-time independent studio artist for 40 years. So by having a piece in the portfolio at Exit Art didn't have a big impact on my career because my career is already in place. But the impact that it has had, it's gotten me shown in your gallery. And it's probably got that print in a few other places too. So that's a plus for me. It came about the month that they asked me to do that was a sad year in my life. I don't want to get dramatic here, but the print is dramatic. It was the year of my divorce. I had been married for 16 years. I had 4 kids, but by the time my wife left, we had only 1 kid left. And when they left, boy, I was like a box set of the blues. You know, I was so broken down. Like our house was divided into sections. So we had like the kids' wing of the house. I didn't go in there for months. I kept the door closed. I was supposed to have a one-person show at my main deal in New York that year, but I couldn't do anything. Every morning I would get up, I'd do a portrait of myself with a magic marker, just draw a sad face. Then my painting studio, I was painting pictures of eyes with tears. But I had this show coming up. So I said, okay, well, I will just do illustrations based on my favorite songs, my favorite blues and country songs. And that piece you have was from the Johnny Cash song Ring of Fire. That's how it came about. Now when I got the concept, because my initial foray in visual arts was as a graphic designer, my concept was to make a board game called The Game of Blues. Be like Monopoly, but blues. But my dealer came here and saw the drawings I made for the game. She wanted to show them as drawings. So I think there were like maybe 12 or more of them. And they were all in black and white. When I was contacted by Exit Art, I decided to print it in color just to make it different than the drawings that were in the gallery. So that's the honest blues truth. But that was 12 years ago. I'm all better now, definitely. Even my wife and I are very good friends now.
You mentioned the relationship between the music and your artwork, Burning Desire. What is this print about? Because we can see it's a smiling woman sit upon a bed engulfed in a fire, like staring directly at the viewer. So I'm very interested by the name Burning Desire. Looking at this artwork, I was asking myself, so the burning desire is that the woman's desire being burning on fire, or she's being putting on the spotlight, burning by others' desire? Can you talk more about what the artwork's about?
Well, the difference between art and illustration tells you the exact story, and art opens the door to your own imagination to interpret it in your own way. So everything you see is correct from your point of view. From my point of view, with Johnny Cash's lyrics, love is a burning thing, and it burns like a fiery ring. Bound by wild desire, I fell into a ring of fire. And that was the catalyst for me, just his lyrics. We have our subconscious is like a road that's been walked on so much, and every traveler's left a footprint. So on my road of subconscious, I have a story from a friend of mine who told me that her grandfather set the grandmother's bed on fire, just like backward country folk jealousy. So that added into it as well, I'm sure. But it wasn't a conscious thing for me. But when I saw the image, I remembered that story. So all those things are folded in there. But Johnny Cash was the catalyst, for sure, that song. And that song was written by his wife, not by him.
It's an interesting story behind the artwork. You also mentioned if you make paintings before the print. In your opinion, what can the print medium do that paintings and other mediums cannot?
You're saying what kind of mediums can...
What can the print medium do that other mediums cannot?
Again, I was a graphic designer, so the idea of prints and reproduction has always been appealing to me. It allows me to reach a bigger audience. And when my so-called public career began in the 80s, it was a way to make my work more affordable. So the foundation pieces to get into major collections were prints. And that was my dealer's concept because I do a lot of paintings like this one behind me with a hot iron burning on canvas and wood. So the Museum of Modern Art in New York saw this as printmaking. So when I had my first short MoMA, my dealer also hooked me up with the print studio in Manhattan to do a series of prints.
We also noticed that you make a lot of installations and sculptures. We are particularly interested in your high heel installations. Many of the high heels that you use in the installation are discarded and they're household goods. By transforming them into masks, furniture, and other forms, are you giving them new values?
Well, listen, I'm bringing it into academic conversation, so clearly I'm giving them new value. But my objective is to exercise the spirit of the wearer that's left in the shoe. It's been proven that 90% of the dust in your home is you. So every place you go, you leave a trail. There's a trace of you. In shoes, that's more obvious, partly because of smell, which I try to avoid because my shoes are not that old. But also, if you wear a shoe enough, it starts to conform to your foot. So there's a lot of memory in the shoe. So I told myself that I would work with the shoes and let them create themselves. The only thing I knew was I wanted to make a face. So I'm in my studio with 1,000 million of shoes, and I'm looking for two eyes, a nose, and a mouth. I started out with telephones, and then hair dryers, and then anything I could find. But I had a show at a place, Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I wanted to make something out of sneakers. My son gave me all of his sneakers. He was maybe like 6 years old. He had maybe 6 pair of sneakers. Because I come from a graphic design and illustration background, I had a concept. Like, I don't have concepts nowadays, I just play. But back then I had an idea to make something. I didn't have enough sneakers to do it. So I went to the thrift store. When I walked into the thrift store, the high heel caught my eye, and I just totally forgot about sneakers after just one day. Started collecting high heel shoes, not knowing what I'd do exactly or how it would come out, but I knew there was something there because, as you ladies know, those shoes are very beautiful. They're designed by great artists. They come in different colors and textures. There are at least probably 10 or more different kinds of heels. So it just caught my fascination. Plus, certain objects in society are what you might call anxious objects. They come with their own history. They tell their own story before you even touch them. You know, oh, that's a prom shoe. That's a wedding shoe. That's a church shoe. So it came fully loaded, as they say. It was like what Duchamp called a ready-made. My task was just to be open to that energy and let it grow from there. So that's what I've been doing ever since.
Continue with the shoe story. You mentioned the memory of the shoes, and the shoes it has its own memory and with their own meanings. We also noticed that the headpieces out of the high heels for the fall winter 2021 men's collection of the Gomme des Garçons Plus. I'm wondering, can you talk more about the meaning of memory change?
My project with Comme des Garçons is like a job. They called me and wanted to collaborate, and they asked me if I'd make headpieces for their models to wear, and they wanted me to make them out of high heel shoes. So that was an independent choice. The Comme des Garçons headpieces were strictly about design. As I said, it was what I would think of as a job as opposed to a work of art. An opportunity, for sure. Initially, they wanted to just use images of my art on the clothing, but then they decided they wanted a prop and asked me to make these headpieces.
Did Dante help you make a lot of websites and Instagram things during the pandemic? You mentioned about last year in a live meetings with Pennsylvania academic of the Fine Art last year on May 29th. And you also talk about how the pandemic affected your life and the work as an artist. So you said that the pandemic makes you think about how to reach out to the audience and the ways to design your project in a virtual realm. 1 year later, can you talk more about how you have navigated through the pandemic?
The galleries where I exhibit were all closed down, and all the museums were closed down, and all the universities were closed down. And I always feel, or say believe, that my existence is like maybe a three-legged stool. Gallery and museum sales, gallery museum closed. University visits and lectures and critiques, they were all closed. And public projects, which didn't close but slowed down quite a bit. So I said I have to figure out something I can do independent of the galleries because, we have habits of identifying with aspects of ourselves and living as if that's us in totality, but that's not true. I'm a so-called fine artist, but that's not what I really am. I'm really a guy obsessed with creativity, and I should be able to apply that to anything. So when the pandemic came, that's when I began to do. And as a result, I've had a lot more fun in many ways. I've done collaborations with the one you mentioned in Comme des Garçons. I've done with Yamaha guitars, with Coca-Cola. I came up with a line of apparel with the slogan Black Art Matters. I've made chandeliers for individual homes out of water bottles. That's what the pandemic did to me. The pandemic cut the chain that was on my leg called art dealers. But we got these art dealers, and the challenge that I've experienced was many dealers act as if the artists work for them. But that's not true. They really work for you. So the pandemic really brought that to light. It also brought to light the idea that we only live one breath at a time. Life is so powerful that we have to take it one breath at a time. That's why we bring it in and let it out, right? So it helped me to recognize that in a more real way because COVID was a respiratory ailment. And we always talk about life being long, life being short, but we don't know how long it's going to be. So I decided that I'm going to become what I call full tilt Willie. I'm not just going to be Willie Willie Schumacher making art out of shoes, or who I call Willie the Scorch, making scorches on canvas and wood. But I'm going to release my full self because I could be dead in 10 minutes or 5 minutes or 1 minute. Part of the purpose of having creative ability, then I need to let it flow more. I don't need to judge myself. Well, I got to practice this a little bit more, or I can't show this, I got to do 5 of these to get a good one. Just to let it flow. I mean, the river does not put rocks in its own way. The rocks are always there, but the water flows around it. So I decided to be like that.
So we want to end our interview with the last question. What else do you want people to know about your artistic practice?
In the world, I want to be viewed more as a multimedia person. And I don't mean painting, drawing, sculpture, photography, and video, but I mean visual arts, musical arts, literary arts, those three things. Because I do all three of those things, but this fine art thing took over my life in the 80s, and everything else was kind of put down a little bit. But since the pandemic, I've been bringing those all back up. So that's what I'm working towards these days. I got a couple of books in progress, illustrated books like graphic novels. I've got 3 screenplays I've written in the past 20 years that nobody's ever read except me and my wife. I've even made 2 CDs and nobody's ever, I think I sold 2 of them on, iTunes when I first made them. But I didn't make them to sell. So I want people to hear it and experience it and know that I do that as well. So I started posting music on Instagram during the pandemic with me playing and singing. So just to get, like I said, full tilt Willie, get it all out there, just be free, let it flow.
Thank you so much for your time and your interview.
Thank you for listening to Artist Perspectives. We appreciate you joining us. A reminder that the exhibition Exit, Prints for the 21st Century, is on view at Picker Art Gallery until December 19th, 2021. Thank you to Art Bridges for the generous support to make this podcast possible, to the students and artists featured, to Karen Wolf for producing, directing, and editing these segments, and to Ellie Miller, class of 2022, for her production assistance. Thank you also to Colgate University, President Brian Casey, and the Colgate Board of Trustees. I'm Picker Art Gallery curator Nick West. Until next time.